We're live. We're live. This is so exciting. I love going live, even though I don't get a lot of people watching. I have a good time, and the people that do watch, I think you guys have a good time too. So, I just wanted to talk today a little bit about success because I've just been really interested in this probably for a long time, maybe my whole life, but especially the last 5 or 10 years or so. And if you follow my podcast, you know that a lot of the stories that we share on the podcast are of the guests, how they became successful a lot of the times. Um, and it's funny because with me personally, I've been getting ghosted so much by publicists and potential podcast guests. It happens so often that I just basically become numb to it. And the irony, though, is that somebody will ghost me, and then I'll land a bigger or more exciting guest. And I think life is just really strange that way. I think the key, from what I've kind of gathered from my experience of doing podcasting and interviewing these guests and reading books on this subject, the key is to just don't give up, right? You have to just keep plugging away. And if you give up, you're just never going to break through that next level. So, like, if I gave up every time I got ghosted, I would never be getting the biggest guests that I have had. Because, like I said, oftentimes those ones are the ones that I was ghosted on somebody else, and then I landed this big guest just out of the blue. It happens so much, and I think that that's definitely a lesson I've learned is like, oh, if I would give up when I got ghosted and then be like, okay, well, I'm done, forget it. I never would have got that next big thing. So if you're struggling and times are bad right now, just like remember, like there's probably something good around the corner because that's usually how life happens, at least for me and in my experience. But I also wanted to talk just about successful paths of famous people. Obviously, people I've had on my show, a lot of their stories, but these are some other people that obviously I can't get all these people on my show because some of these people are just too big to do my podcast right now. So, but it's so fun to hear their stories and share these stories that some of them you may know, some of them you may have no clue on. So, I think this one is probably one of the most famous. Let's see if I can get this bigger. Oh, there we go. Okay. So sorry about the icons on the bottom of the screen. I don't know how to get rid of that. But Michael Jordan, right? Everybody knows he's the most famous basketball player, most successful, one of the most successful basketball players of all time. And probably a lot of people do know the story, but I just think it's really fascinating. That he's supposedly the greatest player of all time. The kid was cut from his high school basketball team freshman year, went home, cried about it, felt terrible because he thought he had all this talent, but he wasn't really working that hard. And so I think when he got cut, again, that was a thing where he could have just given up at that point, but he decided, no, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to show everybody that I am good. And he worked his ass off. And I think it was a thing where like he went in with one of the coaches, like before school or after school, like every day to practice. And I just kept plugging away. And then obviously, the rest is history. He went on to be a great high school basketball player, college, and pro. So that one's really cool. Let's see if I can go to the next thing. Okay, so I just saw this. I saw this. Somebody posted this the other day. I thought this was really interesting too. Like, I mean, I don't know the whole story with Taylor Swift, but it just goes to show you, like, everybody starts from somewhere, and she's got to be one. Whether you like her or you hate her, it's doesn't matter. I mean, she's one of the biggest stars in the world right now. And you see like how she's in this giant arena, which is like obviously more recent. But then look back at this like other picture. She's just got this like homemade, banner that, or maybe she bought that at a print shop or something that probably cost $100 or something. And this band, and I mean, you can't see the audience, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of people there. And she went from that to playing arenas. Like it's crazy to see people's paths because people, you kind of forget like how these people got there. Like how did they, they weren't always playing arenas. They weren't always massively successful. Let's see, here's another one. This is the one that I heard, and I had never heard the story before, but I heard it on a podcast the other day, and I thought it was like really interesting. If you don't know Ed Sheeran, and I didn't know a lot of his backstory. I don't know. And I tried to find this on Wikipedia and it wasn't on there. So I think I watched like a YouTube video to try to refresh my memory from what I heard on the podcast, but he was bullied in school. He had a stutter. He had a lazy eye. Obviously he's got red hair. So he was bullied a lot. And then he memorized, I guess it was an Eminem CD to help his stutter. And then he started writing his own music, and that somehow fixed his stutter, which that alone is fascinating. If that was the end of the story, that would still be a huge success. But he moved to London when he was 14 years old. He was homeless for like 2.5 years, sleeping under bridges and stuff. And somehow he just made it work. He didn't give up. He kept going, and he posted his music online, and he got noticed. And then he moved to LA, and then I think he got hooked up with a radio show or something like that. And I mean, it just kept going. It was like these little steps. But I mean, homeless for 2.5 years. That's insane to me, because I think most people, might be homeless for a few days or a few weeks, and then go, okay, I'm moving back in with my folks, or I'm going to get a job or whatever. But no, he just kept doing shows and sleeping in the subway and stuff. Crazy story there. This one's more recent. I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy, but this guy just blew up like a few days ago. He's a country singer, and he had this song go viral. I think it was called "The Rich Men of," what is it called? "The Rich Men of Richmond" or something like that. Anyways, it's a great song. I'm not even a country guy, but this song has just such emotion. You can tell that and then I listened to some other stuff, and all his music's like that. Like, he just belts out this emotion. I mean, whether you like country or not, I mean, give it a chance, because you can tell that he's really passionate about what he does. But then he went live. He showed a video of him playing live, and there was like, I mean, it looked like hundreds of people. It was a sea of people he's playing live for. And he says, it's interesting. Like, I played this place last month, and there was like 20 people here, and now there's a lot more. Everyone, the crowd goes nuts, or everyone's laughing and like cheering and stuff. And it's really cool to see this. I just love seeing this. Like, this is a guy, I don't know how long he's been in the business or how long he's been playing music, but I mean, this was his first music video that was like professionally shot. I think all the other stuff was just shot with like iPhones or whatever. And the song's obviously great. I don't know exactly how it went viral. I know Joe Rogan shared it, and some other influencers or whatever, but very cool story on that one. Very happy for that guy. I reached out to try to get him on the podcast. Not too optimistic about it. I'm sure he's getting slammed with requests. Here's another one. This could be somebody that you don't like. I understand not everybody likes Jeff Bezos, but it is crazy to think that they are such a giant multi-billion-dollar corporation. And this is how they started Amazon. It's like this. I mean, that looks like something that you print off with your own printer, maybe, like that sign that says Amazon.com. I don't even know if that was made in a print shop. It looks like something that he made in his computer or something, in his little office right there. He's got cords hanging out here. I mean, it looks so junky, and it's just crazy. They went from that to obviously what they are today. That's insane. And there's just so many stories like that. This is another one of my favorites. I've been really obsessed with Mr. Beast, because he's the number one YouTuber. And I guess technically I'm a YouTuber, although I'm really trying to be more of a podcaster, but YouTube is a huge piece of that. And so I've been trying to study him and his path. His path is so fascinating to me, because he literally started just like in his childhood bedroom as a kid. Like, I think he might even started when he was like 10 or 11. He started very young, and just kept going, kept making videos. I think he's deleted some of them, but a lot of his old videos are still on his channel, and you can go back. It's really cool. I love doing this, is going back and seeing people's early beginnings. And that's what's cool about the internet, is a lot of this stuff is now documented. His whole career is on display. I mean, it should be taught in universities and stuff. Like, you go back and look at his early videos and see the progression and how they got progressively better. I think this screenshot that I grabbed was the first time that he was actually on camera, because a lot of his videos, it was just him playing video games and him talking over the video games. And he still built up this following by doing that. And then he finally showed himself on camera. But he talks about how he doesn't really have, this like amazing, hilarious personality or whatever. But he just worked really hard, and obviously it paid off for him. He's the number one YouTuber. Pretty crazy. Now this is interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen this story. This is it's kind of like not exactly a happy ending here, but Johnny Manziel is a football player, and he won what they call the Heisman Trophy. For those of you who don't follow sports, that's the trophy that they give to the best college football player. So he was obviously very successful in college, but it just didn't last until the NFL. And when you watch this show, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but he says that he didn't read the playbook ever. So basically, if you're on a football team, like, you have to like understand the plays. You got to, like, this is the prep, like basically your homework as a football player. He did, and he's like, he puts this hand signal, like, I did zero reading of the playbook. I watched zero game tape or whatever. And they talk about how he had somebody take drug tests for him. And one time he went to Vegas right before a game and partied and missed the game. And I think that was the end of his career in the NFL. It's interesting too to me, like when you study success and the paths that people take, for obviously for him, the drugs was a huge piece of it, and I think that is what did him in at the end. But if you look at musicians, there's so many. I mean, obviously, there are some musicians who things ended poorly for them with drugs, but there's a lot of musicians that continue to do drugs and still have success. So, like, how do you, I mean, figure that one out? That is really interesting because you'd think that if you did too many drugs, like that would get in the way of your success. But you look at bands like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses, like it really didn't impede their success too much. I mean, eventually they had to get sober because they got too old and it was either going to be death or the drugs. But it is kind of interesting to think about that. Um, but anyways, yeah. So that's just like kind of a warning sign. There are, that's why I say the path to success or failure, because some of these people have so much talent. And I saw that when I was a guidance counselor all the time. I saw so many kids with so much potential. And that's what I think I'm good at, is seeing people's potential. I can see someone's potential. I can see potential in almost any person. I feel like I see so much potential in so many people, and I just see so much of it go to waste. And it's so sad. And obviously Johnny Manziel, perfect example of that. But, then I look at, I like to think of my own success because I think that's what inspires me and that fires me up. And then that makes me like want to go out there and take on the world and do it myself. And so, but so many times I get discouraged with this podcasting stuff and the YouTube business. I'm like, I can't compete with these people. It's just like, this is a dead end. I'm having growth, but it's so slow. It's snail's pace. But then stuff like this comes along. And this was really cool. I posted this on Facebook too. I'm sure people are sick of me talking about this, but I just did this little clip of one of my shows, and it was with the security guard this guy does security for Motley Crue and I think Shinedown and Nickelback, some other big bands. And he must be followed by Nikki Sixx must follow him, but Nikki Sixx liked the reel. I was like, holy crap. Like, because Motley Crue, one of my all-time favorite bands. And that really blew me away when I saw that. I was like, and yes, that is the real Nikki Sixx. It's blue ticked. I checked it. That's not his Twitter, it's his Instagram, but that is his official Instagram. So that was like really inspiring. And then what was really cool was just seeing when I posted on Facebook, seeing everybody's reaction to it. And everyone was just so supportive, not everybody, but so many people that I couldn't believe how many comments I got that were just so inspiring and encouraging and uplifting. And that's one thing. I don't know a lot about success, because I can't say like, oh, I'm so successful, so I know all about it. But one thing I will say from my own experience, just having like a tiny smidge of success, is that true friends and people that care about you are going to stick with you in good times and bad. Because I remember when I had my appendix out, and this was like, I don't know, when was it? 2003 or something like that. I had my appendix out, and it was like really depressing because like I had like my family came a little bit, and I had like one or two friends come for like a little bit, but like you really learn who your friends are when you're in the hospital. Like if people you thought were your friends, they don't come to visit you in the hospital, it's kind of like shocking. And or they just, they stop by like just for like 5 minutes and then they leave, and you're just like, I was in the hospital for like a week with my appendix. It was like one of the most lonely and miserable experiences I've ever had. But I always would tell people that, like, oh, you find out who your friends are if you're ever in the hospital. But it's interesting that even if you have a little bit of something good happens to you too, then you also find out who your friends are, because some people don't like that. They don't like you to get successful. So that was really weird. But that's what's so cool about when I posted that. Like, so many people said so many nice things. I was like, oh, like people that I thought like didn't even care, like said some of the nicest things. And I was like, wow, that's really nice to hear that. So I appreciate everybody's support for my little show here. And just nice to hear that. And it makes me want to keep going. So I just love these kind of inspiring stories. But what are your favorite inspiring stories of people or successful people? Maybe it's not someone famous. Maybe it's a family member or relative, a friend, somebody who's not necessarily famous, but just did something successful or turned their life around. Let me know in the comments. I love to hear stuff like that. Really, I do. So please write it or make a video about it. I will watch your video. Okay. I'm not interested in it. So thanks for watching my little thing here and appreciate all your support, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to take off and see you next time.